over Israel, claiming it killed another top Iranian official as the war shows no signs of abating. Iran ramped up attacks on energy assets around the Persian Gulf, setting a massive UAE gas field ablaze. President Trump spoke yesterday as questions grow over how long the conflict can last.
Can we wrap this war up this week?
Yeah, sure. Good.
Will we?
I don't think so, but it'll be soon. Won't be long. And we're going to have a much safer world when it's wrapped up. It'll be wrapped up soon. We're going to have a much safer world.
Diesel prices, as Matt pointed out, have now jumped to $5 a gallon in the U.S. That's the first time since December 2022. The Iran conflict is tightening supplies and ripples throughout the economy. Joining us now is Bloomberg's EMEA News Director, Will Kennedy. Will, we are seeing not just the price of oil, but some of these other products move higher. How sustainable does some of the tightness in this market look with the most recent attacks?
That's exactly right, Danny. We are seeing the impacts throughout the fuel market, and that's because refineries can't get as much crude oil as they used to. That's putting pressure on product supplies. That's having people bid up the price of these products like diesel. And diesel is central to the way the economy operates. That means trucking, but it also importantly means farming. People's tractors and harvesters, they all use diesel. So it's a real input into the economy, which will, if it's sustained over a period of weeks and months, add real inflationary impetus. We should also be looking at jet fuel. We're seeing the price there, and that will feed through into plane tickets. We had the Delta CEO this morning saying that its fuel bill has jumped by tens of millions of dollars this month. So we are starting to see those impacts, and it's transferring through these oil product markets.
Will, I continue to see headlines like the one out of the UAE this morning that they've suspended loading these tankers in Fujairah. Why would they be loading them anyway? Are any ships getting through the strait? I thought that had been closed for the last, 2.5 weeks. So why would we still see people loading tankers?
Well, the significance of Fujairah, Matt, and the reason that the Iranians are targeting it, because it is the one Emirati port, the one port in the UAE that lies outside the Strait of Hormuz. You're right to say that most tankers aren't loading inside the Persian Gulf because there's no ships to put them on and they can't get out. Those ships are full already, but outside they can. There's 1 million barrels plus that goes through a pipeline from the Gulf side of the UAE to the Indian Ocean. So that's why it's vital to this effort to try and get as much oil out as possible, and why the Iranians are hitting it. The other part of this story is the Red Sea. The Saudis are ramping up 5 million barrels a day of exports on this east-west pipeline they have across the Arabian Peninsula that allows them to export from the Red Sea. And that effort, again, is really important to keeping as much oil moving as possible. Those tankers haven't been hit by Iran, perhaps because they can't, perhaps because they think it's a step too far. But that's another thing for markets to watch and will be very alive to.
Well, there are some tankers that are moving through the Strait of Hormuz. The team's most recent reporting, a Pakistani tanker, 2 India-flagged liquefied petroleum gas tankers were also able to exit the strait. Does it seem like there is movement, but it's just on Tehran's terms? And does that move the needle at all for energy markets?
We don't know exactly on what terms those tankers move through the straits, but there have been a few very limited movements, not nearly enough to make a material difference to the disruption that we're seeing in energy markets, but it is important nonetheless. And when we look at the route of those tankers, it does suggest that because of the way they cleave close to the Iranian coastline, that it probably is, as you say, happening on Iran's terms. And we know that some countries have reached out to the Iranian government and asked for safe passage for those ships, including India and Pakistan. And so it's an indication that might be happening. And it's just really an illustration of how much power Iran has in this situation, that it is able perhaps to dictate terms as to who can go through the straits and who can't.